Hello and welcome to the Word for Kids. I'm Jamie and I'm guiding you through the book of Exodus in a series of 20 episodes. Last time we learned about Moses and Aaron's first chat with Pharaoh. They told him what God had said and asked him to let the Israelites go out into the wilderness to worship. Pharaoh did not take this well. Not only did he not allow them to go, he also made their work making bricks more difficult, but expected the same amount to be done. When they could not keep up, he called them lazy. This made the Israelite overseers angry with Moses and Aaron for talking to Pharaoh and bringing this difficulty on them. Even Moses cried out to God, asking why God had brought this trouble on them. God heard the groaning of the Israelites and remembered the covenant he had made with their ancestors. He told Moses that he would free the people from their slavery and bring them to the land he promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But the Israelites were so upset because of their slavery and harsh labor that they wouldn't even listen to Moses. And that's where we left off for our last episode. Are you ready for today's adventure? Let's go. When God spoke to Moses in Egypt, he told him, "I am the Lord. Tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, everything I tell you." Moses again questioned God, just as he had at the burning bush. "Since I speak with faltering lips, why would Pharaoh listen to me?" God said to Moses, "I have made you like God to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron will be your prophet. You are to say everything I tell you, and your brother Aaron is to tell Pharaoh to let the Israelites out of his country. But I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and though I multiply my signs and wonders in Egypt, he will not listen to you." In those days, the king was seen by the people as a god. Moses was like God in that he was able to speak to Pharaoh on his level. However, because Pharaoh considered himself a god as well, he was not willing to grant their requests and give up the power he had over them. God said to Moses, "Egypt will know that I am the Lord when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring the Israelites out of it." Here, God reminds Moses again that he has the ultimate control, and in the end, the people will be set free from Egypt. So Moses and Aaron did exactly what God commanded them. And when they spoke to Pharaoh, Moses was 80 years old, and Aaron was 83 years old. The Lord had told them that Pharaoh would ask them to perform a miracle. When he did so, Aaron was to throw his staff down, and it would become a snake. So when the time came, Moses told Aaron to throw his staff down before Pharaoh. He did so, and the staff became a snake. So Pharaoh summoned his wise men and sorcerers. These were basically magicians. They did the same thing, and soon their staffs were wiggling live snakes as well. Aaron's staff swallowed up their staffs. But Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he still wouldn't listen to them. Next, God said to Moses, "Pharaoh's heart is unyielding. He refuses to let the people go. Go to Pharaoh in the morning as he goes out to the river." God told Moses to bring his staff along. There he was to tell Pharaoh, "The Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has sent me to say to you, 'Let my people go, so that they may worship me in the wilderness.'" Moses was then to strike the water of the Nile River with his staff. When he did this, the water would turn to blood and the fish would die. This would cause the river to stink, and the Egyptians would not be able to drink from it. Then Aaron would stretch out his staff over the waters of Egypt, the streams, canals, ponds, and reservoirs, and they would also turn to blood. Blood would be everywhere in Egypt. Even the water in vessels of wood and stone would be turned to blood. Vessels are just big containers, like large jars. Again, Moses and Aaron did just as God commanded. When Pharaoh was with him, Moses touched his staff to the Nile River, and it turned to blood. The fish died, and the river smelled terrible. The water was not drinkable. Blood was everywhere in Egypt, just as God said would happen. But again, Pharaoh brought his magicians, and they did the same thing. So Pharaoh's heart was hardened again. He went to his palace and did not take what had happened to heart. Because the Egyptians could not drink right out of the Nile, as they had always done before, they had to dig alongside the Nile to get their drinking water. And that's where our story ends for today. Wow, water throughout Egypt was turned to blood, yet Pharaoh still would not listen to Moses and Aaron. Can you imagine how stinky a town full of dead fish would be? Ugh! or how scary it would be to suddenly find the river you went to for water every day was undrinkable. People need water every day to live. While Pharaoh's heart was hardened to God, the Egyptian people's lives were being turned upside down too. They had to dig beside the river to find water to drink instead of just visiting the river to fill their water jugs, as they had all their lives. Remember how God told Moses earlier that the Egyptians would show favor toward the Israelites and would even send them away with the things that they needed? Perhaps the signs and wonders God was using to prove himself to Pharaoh caused the Egyptian people to consider that God was who Moses said he was. Now it's time for the word of the day.
Today's word of the day is worship. That means to show love or respect for God. Worship.
The Israelites had very specific ways they offered sacrifices and worshiped God. But you have probably heard your church service called a worship service before. Or when you sing in church, your leaders may call it worship time. This is because when we sing praise to God, we tell him that we love him and that we believe he is the one true God. Worship does not only mean singing Christian songs, though. There are many ways to worship. When we pray and tell God we love him, we are worshiping him. When we show love to other people, this is an act of worship too, because God is love. Worship begins in a person's heart. A person who loves God in his heart shows love to those around him, and his whole life becomes a worship service to God as he expresses his love for God in everything he does. Now, it's time for the verse to remember. Today's verse is Psalm 24:1. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. One more time. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. Psalm 24:1. That's all the time we have for this episode. I can't wait to see you again soon for another episode of The Word for Kids.